Elijah stared out the car window, watching the familiar streets of his old neighborhood fade behind him. A quiet sigh escaped his lips as he thought back to the past year. His old school had been a place he once loved, until the whispers, the judgmental stares, and the friends who'd abandoned him became too much to bear. Despite his father's fame, or perhaps because of it, Elijah had grown up learning that real friends were hard to find. People saw the son of a celebrity, not the real Elijah. They assumed things about him, expected things, and, worst of all, judged him for things beyond his control. Even his so-called friends treated him like he was a trophy, someone they could show off but never truly understood. "It's time for a fresh start," he told himself, though a flicker of doubt lingered in his chest. A new school, new people, new chances. Maybe he could finally be himself without the weight of expectations. But as his father pulled up to the new high school, Elijah felt a strange tension in the air, like the calm before a storm. He wasn't sure why, but something told him this fresh start would be different from what he imagined. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and walked through the school gates, unaware that his arrival had already caused a stir among the students inside. And among them was Zara, the beauty queen who saw everyone as a pawn in her game, and Elijah. He'd just become her next target. As Elijah steps into a world where he'll face more than just whispers, his journey takes twists you won't see coming. If you're ready for a story about revenge, resilience, and unexpected revelations, hit that like button, subscribe, and join us as we watch Elijah's world collide with a girl who thinks she rules it. Elijah walked through the busy halls, clutching his backpack and keeping his gaze steady. The energy here was different, charged with curiosity and tension as people turned to look at the new kid. He noticed the quick glances, the whispers exchanged, but he was used to it by now. He'd perfected the art of ignoring the judgment, the assumptions. This time, he just wanted to blend in and start fresh. But blending in was harder than it sounded. Elijah's father was a household name, a celebrity whose influence spanned across film and philanthropy. Elijah had grown up under the spotlight, but his family had kept his personal life private, hoping he could grow up as normal as possible. That anonymity, however, came with a catch. When people found out about his identity, they either treated him like a novelty or like someone they could use. But at this new school, he was simply Elijah, the quiet transfer student, or so he thought. Across the hallway, Zara, the school's self-appointed queen bee, was busy chatting with her friends when she noticed the buzz around the new kid. Tall, good-looking, but clearly not interested in fitting in the way everyone else did. She narrowed her eyes, feeling the faintest hint of irritation. "Who's he?" Zara asked her friend, flicking her hair back, her voice laced with the confidence that made people fear crossing her. No one ever dared to say no to Zara, much less ignore her presence. "That's Elijah. He just transferred. Kind of mysterious, right?" her friend said, raising an eyebrow. "He's already got half the girls talking about him." Zara's smile tightened. No one took attention from her, not even for a day. She wasn't about to let someone new disrupt the social order she'd built. And then, an idea struck her, one that brought a sly smile to her lips. The next day, Zara made her move. She accidentally bumped into Elijah at lunch, flashing her practiced, charming smile. She knew exactly how to turn on the charm when she wanted to, and the rest of the cafeteria watched as the school queen bee spoke to the new student. "Hey, Elijah, right?" she said, her tone sugary sweet. "I heard you're new here. Must be tough adjusting." Elijah looked up, caught off guard, but managing a polite smile. Yeah, a little, but I'm getting used to it. Well, let me know if you need a friend to show you around, Zara said, batting her lashes and giving him a look that usually had guys falling over themselves. She had no idea that her typical charm would have no effect on him, and that her plan to use him as a pawn was about to take a very different turn. Thanks, Zara, he replied simply, his tone steady and uninterested. The lack of awe in his voice threw her off balance. People didn't usually respond like that to her. Back with her friends, Zara explained her plan with a smirk. It's simple. I'm going to get close to him, make him think he's got a shot at being friends, maybe even more. And right when he's comfortable, I'll pull the rug out from under him in front of everyone. Her friends exchanged uneasy looks. Are you sure? One of them asked. He seems like a nice guy. Zara rolled her eyes. Nice guy or not, he's taking attention that belongs to me. Besides, he won't know what hit him. But what Zara didn't know was that Elijah was no ordinary transfer student, and that she was about to get tangled up in something far beyond her control. Over the next few weeks, Zara put her plan into motion. She made a point to greet Elijah every morning, sit with him at lunch, and walk with him between classes, crafting the perfect friendship to make it seem like she was genuinely interested in him. Her friends watched from a distance, some amused, others increasingly uncomfortable. Elijah, however, didn't seem as easily won over as she'd hoped. Though he was polite, he didn't show the usual signs of being charmed by her. Instead, he often seemed more interested in his studies or in conversations with other classmates. One afternoon, as they walked out of the school building, Zara decided it was time to take things up a notch. Hey, Elijah, she said, her tone casual but calculated. There's a big school event coming up, our annual charity dance. I thought maybe we could go together, as friends. Elijah glanced at her, slightly surprised. Oh, sure, he replied, sensing nothing unusual. That sounds nice. Zara's friends gave her knowing glances, whispering and smirking in the background. Zara flashed a victorious smile at them, already imagining how she'd turn this date into the ultimate humiliation for Elijah. The weekend before the dance, Elijah was at home helping his mom with some charity event planning when he received a message from Zara. It was an invite to a fancy dinner, which she described as a pre-dance celebration, just for the two of them. Elijah agreed, partly curious and partly skeptical. He hadn't fully bought into Zara's friendliness, but he figured there was no harm in trying to build connections in this new school. Besides, he wanted to prove to himself that he could trust people without judgment. What Zara didn't realize was that this dinner invite set the wheels in motion for her own unraveling. That night, as she texted Elijah with details, she didn't know that the subtle movements in Elijah's life, the people he connected with, the values he held, were about to reveal something far bigger than she could imagine. The evening of the dinner, Zara arrived at the upscale restaurant, expecting Elijah to arrive in modest clothing. She planned to capture photos of their date to show her friends later, already imagining the humiliating posts she'd make. But her smirk faded when Elijah walked in, dressed in a tailored suit and escorted by the maitre d' to their private table. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, surprising Zara, who had no idea he could look this put together. As they chatted over dinner, Zara couldn't resist probing about Elijah's family. So, you're new here. I don't think I've ever heard about your family. What do your parents do? Elijah hesitated, choosing his words carefully. My mom runs a few charities. My dad, well, He's involved in some big projects. He likes his privacy, though. The vagueness intrigued her, but Zara didn't press further, thinking he was just shy or uncomfortable talking about a modest background. The night continued, and she even feigned warmth to lull him into a sense of trust. Yet, there was something about the way he carried himself, the way people in the restaurant seemed to recognize him, that made her uneasy. As the night of the charity dance approached, Zara's excitement grew. The entire school was talking about how the beauty queen was going to the dance with the new guy, stirring rumors and raising expectations. She had planned a speech for the event, intending to call Elijah to the stage to make him feel important, only to ridicule him in front of the whole school by accidentally revealing some fake information she'd fabricated about him. Elijah, on the other hand, felt a strange unease. Though he didn't know the details, he could sense Zara's motives weren't genuine. He'd been warned about people like her by his parents, and he could tell she had an agenda. Still, he decided to go along, partly curious, and partly feeling that something more meaningful was coming from this experience. Meanwhile, the whispers around the school about Elijah's mysterious background grew louder. More students started speculating, and one day, during a lunch break, Zara overheard a small group whispering, "Do you think he's related to that famous actor?" "No way," another one replied. "If he were, why would he even bother being here?" But the doubt was already planted, and Zara's curiosity intensified. She decided that if she couldn't figure it out herself, she would go to any lengths to discover his background, thinking that a final, brutal reveal could be the perfect twist for her prank. The charity dance venue was decorated with elegance, lights twinkling, music playing, and students dressed to impress. Elijah entered the room quietly, scanning for familiar faces. As he walked in, he noticed several students giving him nods of acknowledgement and whispers circulating around. Zara, dressed in a stunning gown, watched him approach. She couldn't hide her smirk, feeling triumphant. Little did she know, tonight would be a turning point she could never take back. As the dance continued, Zara's plan began to unfold. She took the stage with Elijah by her side and started her speech, hinting at Elijah's supposed secret life. Just when she was about to deliver the final blow, her humiliating prank, a voice interrupted her from the back of the room. It was Lila, Zara's ex-friend, who had grown suspicious of Zara's motives. Lila walked up, calling Zara out on her behavior and demanding the truth. "Why don't you tell everyone what this is really about, Zara?" Lila's voice rang out over the crowd. "Why you think it's okay to humiliate someone just because you don't like him?" The crowd murmured in confusion and interest, and Elijah, taking the mic, looked directly at Zara, hinting at something big. "Do you even know who I am?" The audience held their breath as Elijah's question hung in the air, with Zara frozen in place. What secrets was he hiding? Who was he really? And how much would this revelation shatter the world Zara had built around her? The entire room went silent as Elijah's question lingered in the air. Zara's smug expression faltered, and she shifted uncomfortably, trying to regain her composure. "What do you mean? Do I know who you are?" Zara scoffed, forcing a laugh to mask her unease. She wasn't about to let him ruin her night or her plan. But Elijah kept his gaze steady. He took a deep breath and turned to address the crowd. "Some of you may not know me because I came here hoping for a fresh start, away from the assumptions people make about me because of my father." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd as people began to connect the dots. Those who were still skeptical looked at him with newfound curiosity. "My father. Elijah continued, is Samuel Thompson. The name hit the room like a thunderclap. Samuel Thompson, the award-winning actor and philanthropist, whose face and name were known around the world. Elijah's celebrity background wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was the truth, and it left the room stunned. Zara's face drained of color as she took in the reality of who she'd been scheming against. All her plans for the night, the fake friendship, the staged prank, and the ridicule she had hoped to inflict on him, now felt like they were spiraling out of her control. As the revelation sank in, students turned their attention to Zara. What had started as mild amusement at her prank idea was now horror and embarrassment for her. People began to murmur among themselves, their gazes shifting between Elijah and Zara with looks of judgment and disgust. One of Zara's former friends, emboldened by the truth, spoke up. So, you were planning to humiliate him, weren't you? All because he didn't give you the attention you wanted? Zara stammered, desperately trying to regain control of the situation. I didn't know who he was. I was just joking. But Elijah's calm response cut through her excuses. It shouldn't matter who I am, Zara. You didn't know my background, but that didn't stop you from treating me the way you did. And if you'd known, would you have acted any differently? His words struck a nerve in everyone listening, and the crowd turned on Zara, whispers of cruel, racist, and pathetic filling the air. For the first time, she felt the weight of her actions, and it was suffocating. Humiliated and isolated, Zara was left standing on stage alone. Her friends had quietly slipped away, unwilling to be associated with her now. But Elijah, ever the bigger person, stepped forward and offered her an olive branch. Zara, he said, I'm not here to ruin your life. This could be a chance to learn, to treat people with respect, regardless of who they are. For a brief moment, Zara looked at him, her anger fading into something more vulnerable. Shame, perhaps. She nodded, but words failed her. She felt the cracks in the image she'd built for herself, and the realization stung more than she'd expected. In the days that followed, Zara's popularity took a nosedive. She found herself ostracized by her peers, her once loyal clique now avoiding her as though her toxicity were contagious. For the first time, she understood what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. But as difficult as it was, the experience forced her to reflect. She began to see the flaws in her actions and attitudes, realizing that the power and attention she'd craved had been shallow, driven by her need to feel superior. Elijah's grace and patience during her humiliation struck her deeply. She remembered his words from the dance and felt a spark of determination to change. Humbled, Zara started volunteering at a local community center as a way to make amends, hoping to learn empathy and humility. She worked quietly, keeping to herself, no longer the attention-seeking queen bee, but simply someone trying to grow. Weeks later, Zara and Elijah crossed paths in the school hallway. She hesitated but gathered the courage to speak to him. Elijah, she started, her voice softer and more uncertain than ever. I wanted to thank you for everything, for not treating me the way I treated you. I've started volunteering at the community center, trying to make things right. Elijah nodded, a small smile on his face. It's a good start, Zara. I hope you find what you're looking for. There was no forgiveness promised, no instant redemption, but Zara felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that she could finally let go of the weight she'd been carrying and start again. This time, with a heart a little more open and a mind a little more aware. With Zara's story behind him, Elijah continued to flourish in his new school, making genuine connections and using his background and experiences to inspire others. Students who had once treated him as an outsider now admired him for his resilience and integrity. His story became a quiet legend in the halls, one about respect, second chances, and the unexpected ways that people can change. Sometimes, it takes facing our own worst selves to realize who we truly want to become. If you enjoyed watching this story of karma, redemption, and transformation, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more powerful stories that make us think about the choices we make.